enjoy being able to be with you and to share my life with you and to share a couple of nuggets, hopefully, that will impact you along the way. You know, it's so fun to unify things coast to coast, and it's like almost every week I see the group is growing. It's so awesome, and it's so good to be here. But you know, I trust that you guys all had a great Memorial Day celebration weekend, and that you paused from the party long enough to give thanks and tribute to all of our fallen soldiers. I know that I did, and you know, we're a military family. I'm so grateful for people in active duty service, people who have served, and certainly for all the fallen. You know, our plans changed dramatically here at the farm for Memorial Day weekend. It was planned to gather all of our troops and the family together, and it ended up being just my youngest son and his family, and it was a beautiful time. But work got in the way of travel plans for all the others. I ended up on Saturday, I traveled to my oldest son. He lives in Charlottesville, Virginia. It's about a 2.5-hour drive for me. And so I drove down there. We had lunch and a great visit, and I drove 2.5 hours back, right? That journey inspired a conversation with my oldest daughter. She's the mother of my first two grandchildren. And we were talking about parenting and what it takes to raise good kids and things that you can do to make them feel valued and loved, you know, like driving 5 hours just to have lunch with one of your own, right? She remembered times when she was in college and feeling, you know, homesick, and I would drive 4 hours to her and have lunch or coffee or whatever, and then drive right back. You know, it meant the world to her. And no, I didn't hover. I still don't hover, but I did make sure that they knew how special they are to me. And I always was willing to sacrifice for them, and it paid off tenfold. Today, they do similar things for me, just to be sure that they express their love and that they make sure that they know that I know that I'm valued by them. You know, so what goes around in life always comes back around, right? My daughter was so kind to point out things that I did and ways that I taught over the years, and she's putting most of those strategies to work in her own family. But one of the things that we talked about, we laughed about, we just kind of really analyzed, if you will, is how I made sure to explain the why behind my correction or my discipline. You know, when a child asks why, it's often seen as a sign of rebellion. And if you have a mother like my mother, the response you got when you made the mistake of asking why was because I said so. And man, I hated that because I wasn't rebellious, and it wasn't my intent to be disrespectful, but I was inquisitive, and I was always curious, and I just wanted to know why, right? So I changed things in my own family, and I learned to communicate the why, and it all worked out so beautifully in the end. So the simple conversation with the one God gave me first inspired the message today entitled, Why What? You know, we're all too familiar with the importance of identifying our why when it comes down to our business. We hear that over and over and over. You know, we sure have to understand why we're doing what we're doing, and we need something strong and something that instills passion within us to keep us propelling forward. Our why helps us establish our goals, and our why will be what carries us to success. If you don't have a why, then don't be surprised if you aren't growing the way you think you want to grow. It definitely begins with the why, and your success depends on it. So if you don't have one, you need to figure that part out. But there's another why in business that we don't often talk about, or at least not in the way that we're going to talk about today. And that's the why that comes from your customers. You know, why would they want to do business with you? Why would they be interested in the product or service that you have to offer? Why would they choose this company and this product over another? Why would they be compelled to make some changes? Why will they buy? You know, will they buy because they're sick and they'll do anything to restore their health? Will they buy because they already have good health and they want to be sure to keep it? Will they buy because it makes perfect financial sense to quit throwing away money down the drain on bottled water? Will they buy, you know, because they're tired of schlepping water from customers? Why? Will they buy because they actually care about the environment and they want to do their part to save it? Will they buy because they already buy organic and water something they simply hadn't addressed yet? Will they buy because they understand the importance of avoiding toxic exposure in their home? You know, we know why we think they should buy, but do we understand why they really buy? I may be inquisitive by nature, and I may have gotten disciplined more than a time or two because of it. But I understand the need to get to the why in order for me to succeed, and I hope you do as well. It takes strategy to succeed at anything in life. You mean that word strategy means nothing more than a plan, right? It takes strategy to succeed in a relationship. You got to have a plan to have a relationship, a plan to keep a relationship, right? It takes strategy in parenting. It takes strategy in our faith, and it takes strategy in our business. All those things require a plan. So strategy shouldn't be a word that scares anybody, right? But it's when we fly by the seat of our pants that we see disappointment in any one of those areas. We know the success in any business comes from identifying the need and offering a solution. That's what sales is, right? So if we don't get to the why, we don't know what the need is, and we don't know what will inspire that prospect into becoming a customer. No matter how good a product is, the simple truth is that nobody will buy if they don't want it or believe that they need it. You can't persuade anybody that they should want or that they do need what you have unless you clearly understand what the prospect really wants. You got to know what makes them tick, and you got to know how they make decisions, and you got to know what their why is. Knowing and understanding the needs is the center of every successful business, whether selling to individuals or selling to businesses. And once you have that knowledge, you can put to work all those things to persuade people that buying from you or buying from a Enagic, buying what you have is in their best interest. We know what we have, but what compelled us to buy isn't necessarily what will compel somebody else to buy. And that's the biggest obstacle, at least from where I'm sitting when I talk to so many people. That's the biggest obstacle they have. They're going out and presenting what compelled them to buy, but that may not even be on the radar screen of their prospect. People pushing the reason they think somebody should buy, but they never get down to the why of the prospect, and they lose a sale more often than not because of it. So we got to understand, why do our prospects need us, right? What do we know about them? Where do we even begin? You may not know this, but in sales, every business needs a reason, if you will, for their customers to buy from them and not from somebody else. And this is in sales, it's referred to as unique sales proposition, which is USP. Your USP can be identified by completing the phrase, customers will buy from me because my business is the only, and then fill in the blank. And you know what? When you embrace that for yourself, you actually think about it, write it down, articulate it. There's power in that. It's important for you to ask yourself, why do they need me and what I have? You need to do that routinely. If your job, if you will, is to find a need and fill it, how can you do that unless you understand for yourself what you have to offer and why they need you? If you look closely, you'll see that the knockoff competitors out there all over the internet address that USP. Man, they can spin things 6 ways from Sunday, right? They know how to try to step on our toes. They'll spin things like, it's all, the price is high because of the commissions, or, they'll, that technology's archaic. We don't need a self-cleaning or cleaning process. They're poisoning you with salt water, right? They do all these things and try to spin it so that they can address that why of the consumer. But what do? Take the time to write down what you have personally to offer, and take time to write down that what you have through Enagic to offer, and embrace it, right? You've got to understand that you have what people need. You need to believe that yourself before you ever get to the why. I think if a lot of us get caught up in why we need them, right? We need that sale, or we need one notch to a promotion, or we need to find that superstar, right? And certainly there's nothing wrong with those things. But we don't reinforce our value and the value of Enagic nearly enough. By the way, that USP, that unique sales proposition, if you will, can change. It changes as your business or your market changes, and it can change as you deal with different types of customers. But you need to identify what makes you unique as an individual, as a professional, as a representative of Enagic, as a provider of this product. You need to understand that and embrace it for yourself. If you don't, they won't. There are a few things I just want to point out in this call, and we look at how we can identify, the needs of our customers or prospects, and how we can get to the bottom of their why. We hear it, it's a relationship business. You have to form them, you have to ask questions, and all those things are true. But I just want to kind of get down to some nuts and bolts that might help you as you're considering with each person. Again, you need a strategy for every single dealing that you have. So you've got to understand there's certain things that you really should know about them. Number one, you need to know who they are. That's a good starting point, right? You don't want to just know, are you sick? Or are you dying of a disease? You need to know who they are. If you sell directly to individuals, find out about them. Don't make assumptions. People make assumptions all the time. Well, they have a lot of money, but they won't buy. Well, they don't have any money, they'll never buy. We make all kinds of assumptions. Go on a fact-finding mission instead. And we do this only by asking questions and listening more than we talk. Find out what life is like for them. Do they have a family? Are they married? What do they do for fun? You've got to get to the bottom of them so you can find their why. You can't know their why until you understand where they're coming from first. If you deal with businesses, you need to find out everything you can about the business. It's pretty impressive when you go on a call with a business and you already know pretty much what size they are and how long they've been in business and things like that, right? But you need to find out about that and ask some questions. You need to find out how they feel about customer satisfaction. You'll be able to look at them and see, do they do sales or bonuses or coupons or what they do to try to stir up business. Find out if the idea of another income revenue stream would be of interest to them. Find out what makes that business tick. You find out through conversation who the decision makers are. You do that in a business, and certainly when you're dealing with individuals, then you need to do everything in your power to include the significant other, right? How many times have we done our level best and we got one of them on board, and before you knew it, they said, my husband said no, my wife said no. Maybe they did, and maybe they didn't. A lot of times people will throw a spouse under the bus to give us an excuse for why not to buy, right? So when we deal in certainly in a lot of assets in life, usually from cars to homes, we always want to be sure that if there are two people in the equation, they're both there when we talk to them. So do your level best to do that. Number two is you find out what they do. If you sell directly to individuals, it's worth knowing, what are your interests? What are your hobbies? What do you do for a living? If you sell to a business, it helps them to have an understanding of what their business goals are, what they're trying to achieve. What do they do in life? What makes them tick? That's how we get to the bottom of things. You find out, frankly, when they buy. A lot of people buy for different reasons. Some people buy only when there's a need. Unless they got their back to the wall, they'll drive a car till it dies. They'll live in the same house for 142 years. They will never buy. They only buy when they see an absolute necessity, right? Some buy just because it's popular. Some buy because a friend bought. Somebody told them about it. They're kind of influential that way, where people can just kind of pull them along with them. Some buy only after they think they have researched ad nauseum, okay? They only buy after they've read every consumer report on that Ford vehicle, and they spend months, right? They only buy after that. Some buy only preventatively. I'm going to buy a car because mine's got a lot of miles on it. It might die. That you need to find out when they buy. When they buy is key, because see, what you're looking at is how do they make decisions? When do they buy? What triggers them? And you've got to address what triggers them. And so, when you find out when they buy or why they buy, then you find out when they buy. And again, that timing comes down to how they think. You need to find out how they buy. A lot of people, it's strange. We live in a very strange world. People have become more and more distant. They're more and more detached. They're more and more used to dealing with people online, and you got to find out, how comfortable are they with this whole process. You might be an online person and you throw people online, go place your order, and they're still freaked out about, having their identity stolen or something. Or you might deal with people that would much rather do the process through technology, and they really don't want to be hovered over. How do they buy things? How do they move forward? You need to find out about their money. And that's a sensitive thing for so many people. A lot of people feel uncomfortable talking about money, or if people have money, or if they can afford to do something. A lot of times I find that trigger point is because those people that feel, bad about asking the questions are people that wouldn't want you asking them. But the bottom line is people can't buy. You can't get them to closing, if you will, unless you understand, can they even afford to do this? You know, you'll be much more successful if you can match what you're offering to what you know that they can do. That also brings up the point of, you know, there are some people so financially driven that they absolutely cannot qualify for anything. And some of them, frankly, shouldn't even try to qualify for anything. You know, they'll get into a company, a financing program and default, right? It's our job to talk about money. It's to get a good sense of how they can do things. And that why of their financial position will let us know what we need to do and how we need to do it. It might be that they could afford, you know, a smaller unit. Maybe they can only do a JR2. Maybe they can only do a level of car. Frankly, guys, you don't want to lose them and let them go off and buy something that would be bad for their health. You want to get them to buy one of our products. So we have to talk about money, and we've got to stop being uncomfortable about talking about money. That will trigger their why financially. You know, what makes them feel good about buying is number 7. You know, you got to know what makes them tick, and by doing that, you can figure out what makes them feel good. Now, you might laugh at that, but people spend money more freely when they feel good about what they're doing. So you need to get to the bottom of what makes them feel good about buying. What would make them feel good about this? Would they feel proud that they've taken this step? Would they feel like they're being a better financial steward because they cut the bleeding on bottled water? What makes them feel good? We are not dealing with people of logic. We're dealing with people of emotion. So we got to figure out what makes them feel good when they buy something. We kind of have to look at, you know, what they expect of you. Maybe they don't know what to expect of you. Maybe you need to help them along with that. But, you know, guys, we are not in the love them and leave them business. You know, we don't just take the order, or we shouldn't be taking the order and forget about all the people who bought our devices. We're paid to do a lot more than just sell. So it's a good idea to help them know what to expect of you, that they're not going to be left high and dry, that you're going to help them understand the product, you're going to walk them through the process. And by the way, if you want to ever quit chasing your tail and quit looking for the next sale, you want to do that, because you can build a referral business. And it all comes down to helping them believe in you. Why do they want to do business with you, and what do they expect of you? You want to find out what they think about you. You know, there's nothing wrong with asking people, you know, may I ask you, you know, how did you feel about the transaction? How did you know, did I give you all the answers that you were looking for? How, you know, businesses do that all the time. There's a customer service call to say, hey, what'd you think about Lynn when she came to your house, right? So it's a good idea to try to get a feel for that. So if I answered all your questions, you feel like I've done a good job explaining the technology, whatever, you want to find out what they think about you. And not only is it a chance for you to learn, if they tell you something negative, man, you need to make it into a positive, right? But it also gives you the ability to tackle any problems that they may have had in the process, so that they can see, you know, the best version of you that you can be. And then you've got to lastly find out if they're snooping around, and if they mention a knockoff, if they mention any of those things, we got to find out what they're thinking about the competitors. Don't go into pit bull attack mode. You need to find out what they're thinking. Oh, really? You're looking at this unit? May I ask you why you're looking at that unit? You know, what are your feelings about that unit? You need to ask questions to find out what they're thinking. You can't address competition until you know what their why is, what's driving them that way. It could be coming all down to price, and they're looking at a unit for $2,500, $3,000, whatever, that they're told does 100 times more than what ours do, and all you've talked to them about is K8. You got to find out, why are you looking at the competition? What is it that you think about the competition? So you see, your why is in the business that you've painted that picture of and done your vision board is not the only why to be focused on at all. Discovering the why of your prospects is absolutely key to addressing the solution to their needs. It takes a little work, and sometimes it takes some practice to become good at identifying their why. But guys, we're in the people business, and this is, you know, breaking it down in a way you may not have heard it before. But if we're in the people business, we need to learn every why we can learn about the people we're dealing with. You know, anybody can master the art of this kind of communication. They can master finding out the why. It is so important. You have to first understand that it's an integral part of the process. So the message today was entitled Why What? And I trust that you can see all the whys and the whats of the sale process through the simple reminder that I've given you today. And I hope I haven't left you scratching your head saying, so why what? At the end of it all. I hope these threads will show you the importance of understanding every single thing you possibly can about the people that you're dealing with. But most importantly, you have to understand their why. Why will they buy? What will inspire them to take that next step? And until you can address that, you're going to be struggling. And there's no need to struggle if you just commit to go on a fact-finding mission and look for their whys while you pursue your own. I know you can do it. I believe in you, and I believe in me. I'll see you guys at the top. I'll see you next week. You guys go have a blessed day. Take care. Bye-bye.